All right, hey guys. So, welcome. You're probably new because I just started uploading videos to this channel again to kind of document my tiny house journey and homesteading journey. I feel like I need to find a better word because homesteading just has like really weird vibes that I do not like. So, I don't know. I'll think on that. But I have a whole microphone today, which is really exciting. It is supposed to be a lapel mic, but the little clippy thing to attach it to my shirt broke off. So, it is just sitting in my pen cap for now. But you know what? It's doing its job. It is pulling its weight. And you guys are stacked up on a can of San Pellegrino right now as a makeshift tripod. And of course, as soon as I start filming a video, my dog is like, oh yes, let me make as much noise as is humanly possible. So today I'm going to go over 5 things that I wish I had known when I was kind of starting this whole process. So a little bit about me. About a year ago, I bought a prefab tiny house. I bought almost 5 acres of land. And then I also, within my land loan, rolled some construction costs into that. It has been about a year. I only just got the septic tank actually done. I've had several problems with the prefab tiny home. And then I also still don't have electric or like a permanent electric connection. And then still have no well either. So we are going to go over 5 things that I wish I knew sooner. Because I think if I had known how many things I was going to struggle with throughout this process, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have done it at all, but I would have gone about things a lot differently, and I would have approached a lot of things a lot differently. So, the 5 things that I wish I had known. 1 is how freaking long it would take. 2, how goddamn expensive it would be. 3, how much can actually go wrong. 4 is how emotionally taxing it would be. And then 5 is what my other options could have been. Like, not necessarily just scrapping the whole like tiny house buying land idea entirely, because there are a lot of reasons why I wanted to do that. But, you know, maybe just like redirecting, looking at other potential ways that I could have approached this, and really just getting into all of that. So, let's get into number 1. All right. So, number 1, one thing I wish I had known sooner is how freaking long this all would take. And 1, I do think I had unrealistic expectations going in. I just do. This area is the smallest, like most rural area I've ever personally lived. And I was really thinking that, you know, to get like a septic and a well in and like some kind of, you know, electrical connection would probably take like, I don't know, 6 months. I really did not expect to run up against so many delays. And I mean, there were delays in all kinds. I mean, everywhere that you could possibly have a delay, basically. In like submitting for the permits, you know, like there was like information that I needed for the paperwork that I wasn't sure how to get, and then I would have to like hire someone or, you know, like dig through a bunch of papers and call, you know, multiple offices to like try to get that info so that way I could fill it out on the permit papers. And then, like, once I actually submitted the papers, you know, like how long it would take for the county office to actually, like, go through the papers and get back to me, and, like, how many times I would have to follow up, sometimes over, like, multiple weeks to, like, get answers to my questions or to, you know, like, make sure that the information that I had was correct. Oop. Just knocking this table everywhere. To make sure that the information that I had was correct. So even just like trying to get that initial process started took several months, like much longer than I expected. And then also while I was doing all of that, you know, I was like getting quotes from contractors and, trying to understand like what they needed and what that process was going to be like. One factor on that was that this area is much smaller. There are not that many contractors. A lot of them are booked, several months out. And while I did talk to a bunch of people who were like legitimately really helpful and everything, it was a really confusing process too, because like I would talk to one contractor and then they would be like, yeah, like we can put the septic tank over here and that won't be a problem. And then I would talk to somebody else who would be like, what the hell are they talking about? Like you can't put a septic tank there at all. And so like having to figure out like who was being accurate and who like was actually going to be like trustworthy in the long run. And also like this being a small area, there's not really like, you don't really have the same thing of like, you can Google a bunch of plumbers. I'm from South Florida originally. You can Google a bunch of plumbers in South Florida and read, like 8 million Google reviews. And obviously it's not like a guarantee that you're picking the right thing, but there are a lot of contractors that are like not really super listed online, or it's like kind of difficult to find information about them. Like, and given that I was moving from another town, I didn't really know that many people. So getting like, those like direct referrals, was also kind of difficult. So finding contractors, finding trustworthy contractors, getting answers from them, waiting several weeks between like one contractor being able to come out and look at something on the property, and then like, waiting for another one and having them come out and tell me something totally different, and then, just kind of going through that process several times. And then also, like I mentioned, like the wait times for contractors in this area are already pretty long. And then in the middle of all of this, we had a hurricane hit this area, and that like majorly delayed any construction stuff that was going on. So that was another factor. And then also just like separately, contractors like not really giving always like the most accurate start dates, and that can be for a lot of reasons. Like sometimes it's like bad weather, sometimes they like have a lot of, they like don't have enough clients like in my area to like schedule a bunch of jobs within, like a couple of days or a week. All of that has definitely taken a lot longer than I expected, and I think I expected that like once I got the ball rolling on this project that, like, yeah, like there might be some challenges at the beginning, but like, I'll get the hang of things, and then, at some point like things will be smooth. That has not been my experience. I like doing this, to keep using the same analogy, has felt like rolling a giant ball up a hill the whole time. Like you'll like start getting on one thing, and then it's like, yay, like some progress on the septic tank has started, and then something will go wrong there, and then you'll be like, okay, well, that's being figured out, so then like let me work on the well stuff. But then like nothing happens there for like 3 months. And yeah, I definitely wish that I had known how excruciatingly long things were going to take. And I don't even mean that like it's been a long time since, me buying a property a year ago, because I know that other people also experience a lot of delays, like getting utilities into raw land and all of that. I'm not saying that a year is like totally unreasonable, but I think to be a year in and I feel like in a lot of ways, like not a lot has happened, that is kind of frustrating. Like I really wish that I was at the point already, and I kind of expected like at this point already to be like entirely done with utilities and to be able to be moving in. So that's point one. Number two, I really wish I had known how expensive it was going to be. This is also something that I think I went in like somewhat naively, but I genuinely just have never done this before, and just didn't really, like a lot of this are like things that I feel like I couldn't have foreseen. So number one huge reason why it's been expensive is that I bought this land, I bought this the tiny house and everything, and then I can't live there because there has been no utilities there, including even just power. So I can't run the AC, like it's the middle of summer, like I can't live there. And so I have to pay rent as well, right? And so right now I'm actually living with one of my friends, which is super awesome, and definitely like way more affordable than having to pay like a full apartment of rent. But I've only lived here with them for like a month or two. So this whole past year, mostly, I've been paying both the mortgage for the property and then also rent. And obviously that adds up a ton. There's never once been another time in my life that I've had two housing payments, and that has been really stressful. And I think that it's also a huge factor in why utilities taking so long to get in has been so stressful, is that, if I was just like waiting around for utilities to get added and there wasn't the issue of two housing payments, then I really would not feel so rushed. Like, I might feel a little bit impatient because, it's the tiny house, like I want to live there, I'm excited about it. But I definitely don't think that I would feel like so deeply stressful about it. So number one, being prepared to have two housing payments for a long time is definitely not something that I really anticipated having to do for over a year. I do kind of wish that when I had closed on the house, I had either figured out how to get out of that lease like immediately and just like rented a room from someone or something, and just figured out how to make like my housing costs as low as humanly possible. And to be fair, at the time, I mean, like, I had a roommate and everything. Like, I wasn't paying like an egregious amount of rent alone, but even then it has just like maxed out my budget really, like over the past year, and that's been really frustrating and very stressful. And it like pains me to think about the amount of money that I've spent in the past year, even just on like, paying the mortgage and then also paying my rent. So that is definitely a huge aspect that I would say, like, either I wish I had saved up a lot more money before starting this process, or figured out how to get my expenses actually as low as possible while I was waiting for things and while I was still making mortgage payments, but before I was like able to live on the property. So that's one aspect of how expensive it was. Aspect two was just like a lot of random fees and extra things. When I first purchased my tiny house and it got delivered to the land, I had several issues getting it delivered, even though I had sent photos to like the delivery people and kind of talked to them about it. The first delivery attempt, one of my neighbor's trees was actually blocking the street, so then I had to figure out how to get that cut back, like contact my neighbor, get it cut back, do all of that. And then the second time, they actually couldn't like get the tiny house into the part of the property that it needed to go with the truck that they had, so then I had to hire a third person to use a skid steer to get the tiny house in like back into that part of the property, which was like too difficult for just like a truck with a trailer on it to navigate by itself. So it's a lot of things like that, just extra invoices for things, fees, a lot of fees, connection fees, permit fees, stuff like that, which, I think those are expected, but I don't think that I expected them to add up to quite as much money as they have over the past year. And that really just goes back to, like, I do wish that I had either saved more money before starting, or I wish that I had really been super serious about, like, minimizing all of my life expenses as much as possible, and then just, like, 100%, like, zoning in and focusing only on the tiny house. I do think that would have made it a little bit less stressful, but I also, again, didn't really expect it to take this long, and to have so many obstacles to getting utilities in. So I wish I had just more seriously planned on being like, I don't know, a year and 6 months to 2 years before I could actually move in to the house realistically. And I think that would have saved me a lot of trouble, a lot of stress, a lot of like not even like anxiety about the project, but just like this like anxious energy of wanting things to be done and like wanting to be ready and able to move in. A number 3 thing that I wish I had known before I embarked on this tiny house journey. Also, if I keep looking over here, it's because I have a little notepad. Okay. 3 is just how much can go wrong. This sort of ties back into the first 2 points, and I sort of already mentioned a couple of things, but like one thing was like, you know, multiple delivery attempts to try to get the tiny house in. A big issue that I had right away was that when the tiny house manufacturer, like the builder, sent my tiny house from the next state over to where I live, the fridge was not secured, like within the house. And so because that fridge wasn't secured, it, you know, just bounced around all over everywhere and messed up a bunch of stuff on the inside. It like took a cabinet door off its hinges. It destroyed the like barn sliding door that led to the bathroom. It scraped up the floor. It completely dented and like ruined the fridge. So that was one thing. I've had issues with the siding on the tiny house since I bought it. And I'm now having to like repair it myself because the tiny house builder is like saying that it was it's like not their problem, basically. I think it is their problem, but you know, I'm still fighting with them about it. And they have only just now, remember, it's been a year since I got this house. They have only just now sent me the supplies that they were obligated to send me because of the fridge issues. So that has been, you know, like its own stressful thing, and something I've had to like follow up a lot about and kind of like argue with them kind of consistently to try to get the replacement supplies that they owe me, basically, because it was their fault that they didn't secure the fridge before I left for transport. So things like that are some more like minor things that have gone wrong. But as far as like bigger stuff that has gone wrong, I had originally a different part of the property that I wanted to put the tiny house on. But it ended up being that like location wasn't really going to work very well for the septic tank that I needed installed. So we decided to put the tiny house on a different part of the property. Fine, no problem. You know, I don't really mind. I liked the other spot better, but it, you know, in the scheme of things, it's okay. But now, like, a big issue is that in that first location, I was supposed to be able to connect the power for free because it's right by a power line that goes on the border of my property and my neighbor's property. And so because it was really close to where the little home site was going to go, you know, it really wasn't going to be that much of a cost to make a permanent power connection. But since we moved the tiny house site to a different location, it is going to be a lot more expensive now to connect the tiny house to power because they have to put a new power line on that part of the property. So it's just been a lot of like moving puzzle piece parts and having to figure out like, you know, how things fit together and like the, you know, potential like domino effect that one decision is going to have over others. Like, I do wish I had gone a lot more in depth into that, into like what issues people had when they were putting utilities on raw land. I also wish I had met my neighbors a lot sooner. They have all been so great and so nice and have really offered a lot of like advice and everything. Because I live kind of far from this property right now, I don't live in that town. I mean, I don't really see them as much, so I do see them when I visit, but I really wish that I had like used them as a lot more of a resource of like, you know, for contractor referrals and for like advice. You know, like all of them have also put utilities in like on this land in this neighborhood. And so I do wish that I had like, you know, like thought to like lean on them a lot more, especially because like they do seem very open and like willing to help me. So those definitely are things that I really wish that I had like kept in mind, is that like a lot more things are gonna go wrong than you think. You know, like things are gonna go wrong that you like never even could have thought of before. But that also, you know, like most likely if you are doing a project like this, like you are not alone in that area. Even if it's somewhere that's very rural or like very remote, like there is someone within 100 miles of you that's kind of gone through the same thing. And so I really wish that I had like made more of an effort to like more aggressively put myself out there and talk to my neighbors a lot more and gone to neighborhood events and things like that. In retrospect, I think that would have definitely been something that I wish I had done. All right, 2 things left. So number 4 thing that I wish I knew before starting this whole project is honestly just like how emotionally taxing it would be. I don't think I expected to feel so like emotionally invested in all of this and like, I don't know, kind of like have my feelings hurt a lot, which like maybe sounds really silly, but it's like in so many ways like this project is something that I have had in my mind for like well over a decade. And so it's like I feel in so many ways that this is like my little baby, you know, like this thing that I'm like working on and I'm like so proud of and am so excited for and everything. And I definitely don't think I expected to be like so like feeling so like dejected sometimes when things do go wrong, or just really discouraged by like how long things, you know, have taken in the past. And I don't know, I don't think I really expected that to be the case. It has also like brought up a lot of other fears for me, of like, you know, if I like move too far from my friends, like are they still gonna want to be friends with me? And like how hard it is sometimes like as an adult to make new friends and to like move into a new community, and a lot of anxiety around I am moving to a really small town and I never want to be like disrespectful or anything. And so like how welcoming are people going to be to me moving to this area and everything. And so yeah, you know, it definitely has brought up a lot of things around like a lot of different aspects of life and moving and all of that. And I think another aspect for me is also that I have moved a lot, like over 20 times since I was 18, and I'm not that old, so it's a lot. And so like to be able to, you know, like have this project, have this place that I am like really dedicated to like permanently being and like really permanently settling in is really so exciting, and has been something that I have like often felt very impatient about, just like in this process in general. And I really can't wait. I am so excited, and this really is my little baby project. So, but yeah, so, you know, honestly, none of this means that if I could go back in time, I wouldn't do this at all. But we're going to get into number 5 of things I wish I had known, which is what my other options might have been. You know, not abandoning this idea entirely, but just like other things that I, at this point, you know, kind of do wish that I had maybe chosen to like go a slightly different route. So I do wish I had looked into like temporary, or not even temporary, but just like housing alternatives before I bought or built anything on the property. I love yurts. I desperately want a yurt or like a dome home or something like that. Something that is like a lot more cost effective than a tiny house and could be like put up without having to like put a foundation on the property or really do any of that, you know, like things that I could do 100% myself, or, you know, with just like the help of a couple of friends, a local handyman, something like that. So I definitely do wish that I had looked into other housing alternatives a little bit more, because I think to be able to like buy something like a yurt or a dome home or something like that in cash and just putting that on the property and being able to live in it right away, being able to set up like, you know, totally off-grid options and really just like getting a feel for it, being out on the property a lot more, getting to know my neighbors, getting to know the neighborhood, like really just like immersing myself in that area. I think I would have had a lot more fun doing that. you know, and then maybe eventually down the line, like saving up to buy a tiny home, then putting that on the property. But overall, just like waiting a little bit and having like a temporary-ish landing place that I could stay with, that was like less expensive than buying a whole tiny house, but that also still like offered me like some comfort. Because honestly, shout out to the people who just like bring a tent and live on their property like that while they build something. Super admire you guys. Don't 100% want to do that. I'm all for like having a simpler life and things, but I also don't think like long-term, you know, multi-month tent camping is for me, just personally, at least not right at this moment. But I think that could have been like a good middle ground between like buying an entire tiny house and like camping in a tent, you know, like you're sort of in the middle. Definitely a lot more comfortable than just like, you know, your standard little tent. Is definitely much less expensive than, you know, your average tiny house. So I do wish I had looked into other like temporary alternatives, so that way I could live on the property. I also wish that I had considered maybe like waiting to buy land alternatively, like sort of doing the opposite of what I just mentioned, which is like buying a tiny house and then just parking it on someone else's property. Honestly, there are some really, really beautiful properties like around where my tiny house property is, and that people have for rent. So they have like a septic hookup, a water, electric for you already, and all you have to do is bring your little tiny house and then park it there. And that would have been also like way less stressful. I could have, you know, had my little house there. I could have found something in the area that I wanted. I could have parked my house. I could have had all the utilities already set up. It would have been pretty inexpensive, because usually like RV and like tiny house spot rentals in that area are only like a few $100s a month. So being able to do that, again, like being able to really familiarize myself with the area, like make friends, meet a lot more people in town, all of that, like before I decided to buy land, I think that would have been like another option that I should have really more seriously considered. Okay, so I've been talking for like a really long time and I'm tired and I'm ready for dinner, so I'm gonna go. But I hope you liked this video, and if you did watch, leave a comment. Tell me, do you live in a tiny house? Are you looking to live in a tiny house? Why are you here? Let me know. But I will see you guys next time.